Hi everyone, welcome back to Storytime Recaps. In this video, I'm going to recap one of the film from 2010, 13. Without any further, let's get started. The film opens at a place where a lot of money is exchanged. Beneath an odd light bulb, Vincent is holding a gun to a man's head while the man points his own gun back at him. As he waits for the ideal opportunity to shoot, Vince recalls how it all began. 4 days prior, in Ohio, Vince, his mother, and his sisters decided to sell their house in order to raise money for his father's medical expenses. His father had been hospitalized for some time due to an accident. Every day before work, Vince goes to see his father. He works as an electrician and has a number of clients, including Mr. Harrison, who has a mysterious letter and is unaware that a police officer is parked across the street and snapping pictures of him. Vince overhears him telling his girlfriend that the letter will make him a lot of money. Later that day, when Vince gets home to celebrate his younger sister's birthday, he finds it funny that she wants to have her own lamb.
With black ears.
In the meantime, Jasper meets with some dubious persons who lend him $2 million with the expectation that he will repay the entire amount in 3 days. The following day, when Vince visits his father in the hospital, the doctor informs him that a second procedure is required, which will certainly raise the debt. Later, when Vince returns to work at Mr. Harrison's, he hears him telling her friends that he will make a lot of money from this particular task. Just one day, he did the same job before and succeeded due of luck, but the memories still haunt him. After his companion leaves, Mr. Harrison goes to his room to get some shots, but he overdoses and dies. When the police have asked all the pertinent questions, Vince is let to leave. However, before leaving, he visits Mr. Harrison's desk and takes a mysterious envelope containing a New York train ticket and a CPS receipt for pickup. Vincent visits the post office, provides the clerk with his ID when he requests it, and receives a package containing a phone, $500, a key, and a letter with a spider logo and instructions telling him to use the money for the hotel in New York. He is not allowed to take his own phone and will receive more instructions later. After hearing from Mr. Harrison's girlfriend about the missing envelope, the police proceed to the post office and discover that Vince is the one who picked up Harrison's package. They forward this information to Detective Larry. He has been looking into the case of those envelopes and gives them orders to follow Vince around. The following day, Vince dons his finest suit and boards the train for New York, without realizing a police officer is after him. After arriving in the big city and staying at the hotel as instructed, he gets a call in the middle of the night on his new phone and, posing as Harrison, he is given further instructions, which he follows with the next day. He visits the post office at Grand Central, opens a P.O. box with the key, and discovers a new package containing a little piece of cork bearing the number 13, a second train ticket, and additional instructions. His ticket is from Macomb, but he has to get off one stop first. Later on in the train, the inspector asks Vince for his ticket and informs the police that Vince is going to Macomb. However, because he gets off sooner, he gains a few minutes of time on the police. The next phase is to take a taxi to the outside of town, where another car arrives. Once the taxi is left, Jack, the driver, hands Vince a piece of cork that also holds the number 13. When Vince displays his own, Jack calls him, grabs the phone, and drives him away. A few seconds after asking a taxi driver to take them there, Detective Larry and the police show up, but it's too late because there are no hints for them to follow. Shortly after, Jack brings Vince to an abandoned shack in the middle of the forest, where two more men give him new, simple clothes to wear while checking his old ones to make sure nothing is hidden within. They even chop off the heels of Vince's shoes. After that, Vince is driven to a different place, this time a massive estate filled by wealthy individuals. There, Vince runs into his patron Joe, who can clearly tell he isn't Harrison. Vince tells Joe that Harrison is dead and that he stole his place, and Joe has no option but to let him play if he doesn't want to cause issue with the other patrons. Meanwhile, there are numerous wagers going on downstairs, all of which involve large sums of money. When Jasper gets there, he bets on the contestant who is number 6, while Joe bets on Vince, who has been signed number 13. It turns out that the game everyone is betting on is actually Russian roulette. Vince is handed a gun and made to stand in a circle with the other players. All of them wear black t-shirts showing their numbers. Each man is given a single bullet, and Vince is extremely anxious and needs Jack's assistance loading his gun. After rolling their barrels, they have to aim their guns at the person in front of them while pointing it behind them. They then have to wait for the light bulb containing the spider logo to light up. If it does, they can shoot. The winner advances to the next round. When the bulb eventually turns on, a few men are killed, but the round isn't over yet because Vince hasn't used his gun yet. Security arrives and threatens to shoot him as well if he disobeys the rules. Vince then gathers all of his power and fires his gun. Fortunately, the man in front of him lives. When the first round is over, Joe advises Vince in private to keep it up. Joe also starts taking bets from patrons who lost their guys, and Jack offers Vince some morphine, but he declines. In the meantime, participant number 17 Patrick Jefferson speaks with his patron Jimmy and offers him 50 times more money if he gets him to get out. When Jimmy asks why Jefferson is taking part in this competition with his wealth, Jefferson explains that he was formerly incarcerated until one evening when they forced him to dress up and then locked him in a box that was sent to this mansion. Jefferson spending the entire 2 days in the box. Jimmy isn't touched by this story and says he can't help. Additionally, Jasper receives additional bets on his participant, who is his brother Ronald Lynn Baggs. Until recently, Ronald was in a mental institution, but Jasper brought him out merely to play for him. The second round starts in this time, with 2 bullets in each gun. Half of the circle dies. Vince survives by sheer luck, because the man behind him didn't even have time to fire. Although there is a brief moment of shock when number 16 unexpectedly gets back up, the doctor determines that he is too injured to continue, so security shoots him permanently. When Hans, the 11th participant, has a mental breakdown, his patron, Mr. Schlondorf, tries to console him with a motivational speech, but it doesn't really work. Jefferson talks to Jimmy again and tells him about his past. He was imprisoned for robbing a truck, but before being caught, he had hidden the money somewhere safe. If he loses the competition, Jefferson wants Jimmy to use a map he has just drawn to locate the money and keep in his pocket. He can keep the other half if Jimmy gives Jefferson's son the other half of the money, who is imprisoned as well, and Jimmy agrees to the deal. As he gathers more bets, Jasper is experiencing some of his own flashbacks. When he removed his brother from the mental facility, Ronald stopped taking his medication, saying he felt better without it. Though, he doesn't look so well anymore, and when Jasper draws a number and realizes that Ronald will be pointing at 13, Ronald throws an ashtray at Vince's head. Jasper has to stop him from making a disturbance. When round 3 starts, the participants are clearly feeling the effects of the tension. Hans is given morphine to help him relax and go to the game, and number 3 requires a chair in order to play it all. As Ronald pushes Vince and even slaps him, the host intervenes before things get out of hand. In this round, each player will receive 3 bullets. After following the normal protocol and firing, only 5 players remain: Vincent, Jefferson, Ronald, number 3, and number 9, which allows the competition to go to the game's final round. 5 wrapped balls, 2 black and 3 white, have been placed on the table for the duo. Patrons will select a ball, each of the 5 players, and the 2 who receive the black ones will compete in the final duel. The other 3 are free to leave. Joe and Jasper both take the black ones, therefore Vince will be facing Ronald. Since Jasper is the more expert player, he gets most of the new bets, but Joe is able to persuade Schlondorf to wager on Vince because their odds are 5-1, which means they will win a lot more money.
We will do business.
After telling Jefferson that he can pick his money and leave, as he is getting dressed normally, Jimmy tries to kill him by surprising him from behind. Luckily, security catches them before the worst comes and tells Jimmy that survivors cannot be harmed. Jefferson mocks Jimmy for believing stories and curses his name while pulling out the piece of paper he was carrying in his pocket and showing the blank paper. After Jimmy and the guard depart, Jefferson reveals that everything was a trick. The blank paper was a ruse. He still has the map on him, and he burns it before leaving. Before the final round starts, Ronald insults Jasper, demanding his share of the money this time. Ronald knows that Jasper received money from their parents to care for him, and that Jasper used it to put him in a mental institution. Ronald only takes him out to the game and never shares his winnings. We go back to the beginning of the story as it's time for the final duel, and each player is given 3 bullets. Ronald and Vince point their weapons at each other while looking straight at each other. but it's a lucky round because none of them dies. On the subsequent attempt, when another bullet is fired, Ronald is killed, showing that Vince has won the contest. Schlondorf rejoices at having placed such a dangerous bet. Jasper is grieving over the loss of his brother, but Vince is the one who is suffering the most because he must bear the burden of his death. The man who pays Vince the $1,850,000 final prize refers to him as lucky, since Ronald had previously won all of his duels. When Schlondorf and Joe compliment him on his performance and offer to drive him to the train station, Vince pretends accept. However, on his way upstairs to get his things, he passes through the crowded room of participants and leaves the mansion through the window. Jack does notice, once Joe is informed that he is gone, but he doesn't appear to care. In the morning when Vince arrives at the train station, the cab driver who dropped him off the previous day notices him. The driver notifies the police and informs them of Vince's whereabouts. Fortunately for him, Vince spots the police cars coming from a distance and hides his money bag inside a garbage can to avoid being captured. Shortly after, he is brought to Larry for questioning. When the detective inquires about the money, Vince makes up a story on the spot and acts as though he has no idea what he is talking about. He says that he never made it to the competition because they realized he wasn't Harrison and dumped him in the middle of the forest to shoot him, but he fled.
I saw one of them had a gun.
As evidence, Vince shows Larry his shoes, feigning that his intense running caused him to lose the souls. If Larry ever captures these people, Vincent is eager to identify their faces, but he is unable to lead the detective back to the place where they abandoned him because they had blindfolded him. Larry is forced to release Vince since there are no further hints or proof to follow. Following another taxi ride to the station, Vince quickly returns to the trash can to see that his bag is gone. However, he then observes that all of the trash bags at the back of the building have been replaced recently. Unfortunately, when Vince starts to break the bags apart, he finds his money, but he realizes he can't take the chance again. So he goes to the post office and puts all the money in a box and sends it to his family via registered mail. After calling his mother to alert her about the delivery so they can make sure someone is home when the mailman arrives tomorrow, he then boards the train to New York. After spending the night in a hotel, Vince visits the grocery store in the morning to buy some snacks. He finds a lamb plush toy that makes him think of his sister. The clerk is hesitant to sell it, so Vince ends up spending $100 on it. As Vince boards his final train to return home to Ohio, Jasper follows him and engages in small talk as though nothing unusual had happened. When the train reaches its first station, Jasper shoots Vince and takes the bag, fleeing with it because he believes the weight of the large plush toy represents the money. Before passing away, Vince eats the post office receipt, thinking of his family. Thanks for watching, and remember to turn on your notifications to watch more movie recaps like this one.